So good morning and welcome to our Zoom service. My name is Nancy Nelson and we will begin today's service. We preface our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and church were built were not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Mimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse and the Chichuns, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you are joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide, and where they are now. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. And now, let us join our voices together for our words of welcome, unison and chalice lighting and sung affirmation. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, and whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here. We are hoping that everyone has a chalice or candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together.
Hi, I'm David Nelson.
I'm Nancy Nelson.
And I'm Kate Nelson.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
Good morning. I am Ginger Yoder, and I serve as the Director of Family Ministries for this church. And I've been with you for many, many years, and in lots of different capacities, from child of this congregation to now serving you to help hold our families and children in the same love I received all these years. And this spring, after 12 years in this work, you all granted me a sabbatical, which is an amazing, wonderful thing. I was the first person in this particular job to get a sabbatical from this church. And so I'm extremely grateful. And I took 4 years. I took 4 months to rest, learn, reflect, grow, and deepen into myself. And my hope was that I could return to my work with a deeper sense of dedication and strength of spirit. And you all deserve that. So it was quite an amazing experience. And I'm going to share with you today a bit of what I discovered on my time away. And maybe even more importantly, what it's been like to try to hold on to these lessons after returning to real life. And here's the spoiler. It's all about lowering expectations, allowing myself some self-grace, and remembering that the light that already exists in me was always enough. But before we get too deep in the weeds of all this, I want to begin our time together with a poem and a full disclosure. I had about 20 books I wanted to read while I was away, and they were like parenting books and books about race and allyship, self-help and discovering myself books, and books to help deepen my profession. And I didn't read any of them at all. All I read was poetry. It was poem after poem that spoke to my soul. And I would open the other books and I like literally couldn't even make sense of the words on the page. So I just devoured what my soul wanted. I read Rupi Kaur and David White, Mary Oliver, Tony Hagen. I want to weave the poems that spoke to me the most into our service today. And so all the poems and all the songs are the things that spoke to me the most while I was away. And I think in a way, the poetry speaks even more eloquently to the deeper truths than I ever could. So let's begin with David White, who reminds us that the miracle light is already shining for us and within us always. It took you so many years to credit the miracle light, although it always faithfully made its difficult way towards you. It took you so long to see the way understanding rises from the center of your own body, every day and luminous, from arriving waves of what only seems like the ordinary.
Well, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, well, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around the world, all around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. All around the world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it. In my daily work, oh, in my daily work, I'm gonna let it shine. In my daily work, I'm gonna let it shine. In my daily work, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
That was so wonderful. I just love that rendition of that song. And it's a song that I've shared with my son for a long time. So I love it. So there is a temptation for me when I'm trying to talk about my sabbatical to just list the things I did, all the adventures or things that I did in order and places I went. And it was pretty amazing in those terms, despite the changing seas of COVID, that I was able to spend time at my grandparents' ranch and do some hikes and some bike rides. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not what I did that really defines my sabbatical for me. It's what I didn't do. It's the lessons that I've learned from not doing that I really want to share with you today. And I'll start at the beginning, which in the first 2 weeks of my sabbatical, I literally was constantly worried I was wasting it. It was like, I was sitting here thinking, oh, I need to do some soul searching right now. And when does the transformation and deeper connection to myself going to happen? And why aren't I feeling changed? And really at the core of it, I thought, what if I don't make the most of this precious time? And it felt like it was already slipping away. Like I said, I wasn't reading my books. I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing my meditation. And I was just waiting. Where is my spiritual awakening? And it doesn't really work like that. Life doesn't work like that. You can't just sit and wish for your awakening to come and actually worrying about it is probably the most anti-productive thing that you can do to try to find yourself. And so that didn't work. And I have a spiritual companion. It's through the Unitarian Universalist Association, and it's basically like a counselor, but for your soul. And if you ever have a chance to get a spiritual director or spiritual companion, it's pretty much the greatest thing I've ever done. But she invited me to take 2 weeks without any expectations. I was meeting with her this time, and I said, I'm not doing enough. And she said, Ginger, 2 weeks, take 2 weeks to do nothing besides the most very basic facts of living. So the house had to fall apart, and that was going to have to be okay. The plants in the garden wilted, which, it was a hot and dry summer, and I just had to deal with that. And then the bar was basically, if John, my son, my 9-year-old son, was alive at the end of the day, I was successful. That was my bar. So I gave up trying to become enlightened and wise and productive. And I thought of all the things I was trying to do, and I set them down. And my family, it was hard. I'm not going to say, oh yes, I just was able to let go. It was excruciating in some ways to watch the laundry pile up and the dog hair on the floor. And oh my gosh. And it was challenging for me as kind of a type A person. And one of the things is that my family ate whatever we had on hand, rather than these perfect home cooked meals that I like to do, but they were really zapping my time and my energy and straining. And when that happens, when like you're sitting there cooking soup and you're thinking, oh, I do everything for everyone. And how can soup taste good if you're sitting there being resentful about making it? So I let it go. And this was actually John's favorite part, because he got to choose whatever he wanted for breakfast. This was one thing I let go. I said, I cannot get up and make this beautiful breakfast every day. It is just too much. And so he had to figure out what to eat for breakfast. And he decided that his new favorite breakfast was corn dogs. So I became the mom that let their child eat frozen corn dogs heated up in the microwave for breakfast most days. And I also let him have screen time, a lot of extra screen time. And like I said, the house just kind of went into a place that, there's COVID. We didn't have visitors. I let it go. And I wore nothing but comfortable clothes, even if they didn't match. And I even started going out in public without makeup. And I let my hair decide to do what it wanted to do. And it actually felt okay after a while. And I realized as I gave up the things, I also gave up trying to become this like better person, this better version of me. And I just started to be me. And after the 2 weeks was up, I told my spiritual director, I said, I can't let this go. I don't want to go back to that place. And so then I did it for 2 weeks more. And then I did it for 2 weeks more. And then I fell more and more deeply into this expansiveness of time, rather than this feeling of the acute lack of it. I noticed that I could just not go to the grocery store or get exercise in or finish a project. And I didn't have that ever-present anxiety and tightness in my chest. And most importantly, probably that self-talk of not being enough, of not doing enough. And I allowed myself imperfection and flaws. And this led to an unexpected realization. The less I expected of myself, the less I began to expect of others and the world as a whole. And now I've worked for a lot of years in counseling and all these different ways to try to be a more flexible person and not act out my anxiety with the need to control the environment and the people around me. And I've worked on this and read books and journaled, and I could never quite be the relaxed flow person that I wanted to be. And it turned out I was doing it wrong. I was trying to be less controlling of the world when really I needed to let go of the interactions I was having with myself. And the more grace I gave myself, the more grace I naturally gave to others. And so those little things that would bother me, especially when you're in the house with people that you love for 18 months now, like that the dishwasher just doesn't get loaded in the way that it really should most of the time, or how many times does can I hear about John's favorite Pokemon without just maybe exploding? Those things stopped bothering me. It wasn't even that I just said, oh, these things are just normal and it's okay to bother me. It was like, as soon as I let go of my own need to be perfect, I let go of everyone else's, my expectation that other people were perfect too. And I became a better partner and friend and parent. And I, for the first time in my life, realized that the idea of being good enough, which I've talked a lot about, I've read a lot about this idea that, you know, there's perfect, and then there's maybe not, like, you know, John isn't alive at the end of the day. And then there's like this good enough level, like things are okay. And I actually started to believe that was true for myself, that although I've always thought it was true for other people, I don't think I ever let myself say, no, I can also be just good enough. And somehow that started to feel true. And so it leads me to wonder if you've ever felt that way. Have you ever, are there things that you might be able to put down? And where is the good enough level in your life? Could you live with more laundry piled up, or could you eat corn dogs for breakfast and be delighted by it? Can you know that you are a perfectly imperfect person, just the way you are? And that actually isn't just really okay, but it's joyous and wonderful that we are perfectly imperfect. So I'm going to share with you the words of Rupi Kaur, and we'll move into a place of meditation where maybe we can imagine what it might be like to allow ourselves a little bit more of this gift of self-grace and compassion. We think we are lost, while our fuller, found, and complete selves are somewhere in the future. We get on our hands and knees thinking self-improvement will help us reach them. But this finding ourselves is never going to end. I'm tired of putting off living until I have more information on who I am. I'm a new person every month, always becoming and unbecoming, only to become again. Our fuller selves are not off in the future. They're right here, in the only moment that exists. I don't need fixing. I will be searching for answers my whole life, not because I'm a half-formed thing, but because I'm brilliant enough to keep growing. Everything necessary to live a vivid life already exists in me.
Couldn't sleep last night. Too many demons floating around my head. But with the morning light, your warmth pushed away my dread. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. I've gotta let this go. This doubt inside me, with every road I take, there's things I'll never know, but I'll go my own way. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. laughter, a smile to get me through. Maybe I'm not okay, not today, but I'm here with you. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. That's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. Comes a time to say that's good enough.
That was one of my favorite songs throughout my sabbatical. So I hope you enjoyed it and it spoke to you maybe in some of the ways it spoke to me. So now I'm going to move into a little bit more of what happened when I came back. And really, sabbatical led me to realize that the expectations that we hold ourselves to are impossible. And it was likely that they were mostly unreasonable before the pandemic. But now that we're experiencing this collective trauma, these personal traumas, and everything is layered on top of everything, I think it's unattainable. And we've been immersed in this idea, this cultural idea that our worth is based on our outward work, that we are worthy because of our production. And I think this is at best a lie, but at its worst, I'm beginning to think it's actually an act of violence against ourselves. Because you are worthy because you are, and not because of what you do. And drawing from our universalist heritage, we can remember that nothing you can do, but maybe more importantly, nothing you don't do can separate you from love. That you are a part of the universal love, even if you don't do something or you don't be productive or you aren't who you think that you should be in the world. This is the truth that we hold dear to our hearts when in our Unitarian Universalist faith. And yet coming back into this non-sabbatical life, I felt my mind and my body really quickly readjust to this pre-sabbatical mindset of doing more, being more. And it's a daily practice to remind myself of those truths that are true in my life and in my faith. I have to tell myself every day, I am more of service to myself and those around me when I'm less productive. I can hold more space and more love when I don't fill myself with expectations. And I can tell that this is going on in me because my body gets tense and those voices come of like, oh, you're not doing enough, get more done. And one thing has helped ground me through the last 3 or 4 months back, which is I need to take a few breaths when I feel this way. And I ask myself, what does my heart need? The question is, what is the next best thing that I need to do for myself? What is the next thing to do? And then I have to listen. And then I actually have to do it. And I have to tell you, all those things are actually hard. Sometimes I get all the way to that last step and I'm like, I need to go for a walk. And then I don't. So it's important to actually follow through with the listening to my heart part. And it is that usually my heart and my soul don't need anything that is on my to-do list. Like with Leo and all of his things, it's much more in the realm of dreaming than the to-do list is what my heart needs. Sometimes it's a walk or a nap or to play a game with my son or to sit in the sunshine. And I realized that my spirit really does need rest. And I think more rest than it did before the pandemic. The trauma, I think, is really real. And I think this allowing ourselves to rest is really, really critical when we can, even if it means more screen time for the kids and corn dogs that show up maybe for every meal. And this week actually showed me just how much I needed this work. So we had kind of a calamity of events. My husband actually crashed on his bike, and he's okay, and he will be okay, but he has been in quite a bit of pain and needing a lot of support. Our dog also ate something, of course, bad, and then has been sick all over the house for a week. And then we had no school for 2 days. And so we had extra childcare, and I couldn't send off the little one to school. And he, of course, wants attention and love and all of the things he deserves. And I looked at my to-do list, and it was long. And then I looked at the ones around me, and they needed my love and support. And I looked at myself and I said, I can't do it all. And so I put off a bunch of things that didn't have to happen this week. Like literally, I wrote this sermon last night. So that was a thing I put off, although I needed to do it. It had to wait. There are currently 6 loads of laundry. It's not just on the bed, but it's on like both couches. Like the dog is whining because there's no place for him to lay down. And I cleaned the house because health reasons. The dog made sure that the house actually got like cleaned and vacuumed a lot, but that was okay because my husband is healing well and he feels loved and supported. I actually said yes to offers of help from friends and community, and they brought us lunches and dinners and treats and cinnamon rolls. A friend brought me those cinnamon rolls from the Pie Safe out in Deary, and oh my gosh, I ate like 3 of them, and that was so worth it. The stomach ache was totally worth it. And I took a morning that I probably should have been doing this service to go out and pick pumpkins with my son and his best friend. And I took a couple walks in the glorious fall. And you know what? The world didn't fall apart. And we all got here today. And everything is actually better than if I had pushed through and not taken the time to say, what the next thing that I need to do? What is the next best thing? Without going into the future of all the things I had to do. So I'm going to ask you to sit for a moment as we come near the close of the service. And maybe ask yourself, can you sit quietly and ask, what does my heart need? And if you can't hear it, keep practicing today. Keep listening. Because your heart and your spirit and your every essence is worthy of love and compassion and grace from you. And don't believe them when they tell you that to do more is to be more. You already are everything you need to be.
Oh
leave you with a poem that I have on my home office wall. And I look often up at it during a busy day when I'm surrounded by books and papers and unfinished business. And it's a constant reminder of the lessons of my sabbatical. It's called The Word by Tony Hoagland. Down near the bottom of the crossed out list of things you have to do today, between green thread and broccoli, you find you have penciled sunlight. Resting on the page, the word is beautiful. It touches you as if you had a friend, and sunlight were a present he had sent from someplace distant, as this morning, to cheer you up and to remind you that among your duties, pleasure is a thing that also needs accomplishing. Do you remember that time and light are kinds of love, and love is no less practical than a coffee grinder or a safe spare tire? Tomorrow you might be utterly without a clue, but today you get a telegram from the heart in exile, proclaiming that the kingdom still exists, the king and queen alive, still speaking to their children, to any one among them who can find the time to sit out in the sun and listen. So my blessing to all of you is the self-compassion and grace to put sunshine on your to-do lists. And if it's kind of not super sunshiny and maybe rainy today, maybe you can put on a raincoat and join us at Pumpkin Patch, because I kind of think pumpkins are the same as sunshine. I love the fall so much. They're like all the sunshine of the summer comes into the one beautiful gourd that you get to take home in the fall. So if at any moment you can do a bit less, I hope that maybe you can find that you can hold a bit more. Thank you so much.
We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it guide our paths as we leave this place and light our way until we are together again.